Hello and welcome back to the North American LCS. Swapping into the co-card seat for our second series is Aiden, Zyrie, Moon. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, I got kind of baited up here. They said they had a pastry here, and kind of hungry.
Just me, but coming right up, thankfully for you, I can at least try and help you with your League of Legends cravings, because we have a best of 3 series between FLICKR and Cloud9. These are two teams that have struggled a bit out of the gate, both facing tough tests in Immortals and Echo Fox in week number 1.
Yeah, but P1, they actually played well individually, but they looked lost. The two teams that would end, they lost to the two teams that would end with undefeated records in 2-0 in the first week. And P1, they showed mechanical skill, but they still don't look all on the same page and as a unit.
No, not just yet. And to make matters worse and throw another wrench into the mix, P1 was forced to make a last-minute substitution. Match is out for the series. Standing in will be Slushy on AD carry. And as a result of that late substitution, P1 will lose it ban for game 1 only. But that's just so much to digest for this team.
Yes, but Slushy, back in the day, so you don't have to sound the alarm, he did used to play AD carry for Team 8 before they made it into the LCS. And there's actually a pretty good story behind this, because he played AD carry and Chu 8 was their mid laner, and I got to talk to the other half of that bot lane, Dodo 8, and he said he was a really good AD carry. He still plays it in solo queue, hyper aggressive, even more so than Wild Turtle. But we moved him because he kept dying in team fights. We moved him to mid because he couldn't stay alive.
Well, aggressive, definitely I can tell is still Slushy's ammo, so we'll see how he does in ADC. Like Phoenix, though, Cloud9 are still trying to get their footing with their new roster. They have played 2 hard-fought series that went the distance against Immortals and Echo Fox. So again, still 2 very challenging teams.
Yeah, Cloud9, they're experimenting with that 2 support sub strategy. It paid off against Echo Fox, but not so much against Immortals. And the question is, will consistency be the problem for this Cloud9 lineup? And they're still trying to figure it out themselves. Bunny Fufu, I believe, will be starting today, but if he loses a game, he's out of there.
Yeah, and the thing is, coming into the split, C9 have made a bunch of changes. Earlier, we connected with C9 starting support Bunny Fufu and hoped he'd shed some light on how the team is getting along without their former shot caller High.
So Cloud9 has always been looking towards moving on without High, I guess. And in the past, I think they've taken the wrong approach, but this time, I think the most important factor taking this time would be Reaper, our coach. He really is bringing the team together and making them work together. Like, I know yesterday we had a hour-long talk about how to communicate as a team, and I feel like with enough of those talks we'll be, if not stronger, because it's all 5 people coming together with the decision rather than one person saying, do this, do that.
Well, we'll have to see how it works, because like Cloud9 without High, it's been a very curious Cloud9 usually.
I like how he's talking about communication,
Yeah.
and he says, if not stronger. I don't know, like, if not stronger, then what?
You know what? Maybe we'll find out soon. But we are nearly ready to spawn onto Summoner's Rift. So let's run down our starting lineups. Looking for their first match win today is FLICKR. They have made some changes. We'll see if the difference is enough. In the top lane, it is Zig, their jungler, Sentinel, their mid lane, Pyrian, their AD carry, Slushy, for the surprise, support Gate, and still Coach Charlie, making sure the team stays in line.
Yep, and standing in their way across the rift is Cloud9. In the top lane, Impact. Meteos in the jungle, Jensen mid, Sneaky at AD carry, and Bunny Fufu starting support in this match with Coach Reaper helping the communication.
Coach Reaper's going to have to do some work if Bunny Fufu's words are anything to live by. Cloud9, they've always been a team that's had a strong history in the NALCS. They feel like they're a team that can get work done. But how they win seems to be their biggest issue. At one point it was by High, now High's gone, and I think the roster they put together is strong, but definitely still learning how to gel together. And where do you want to start? Because mid lane's the obvious place, but I'll let you decide.
For Cloud9?
Yes.
Yeah, basically, Jensen Sneaky, the only 2 returning members from that squad. Bunny Fufu did play with them a little bit, and then it got subbed out. So the communication is something that they really have to get down. And Jensen, he's that star, right? He's still that carry, so they kept a lot of their carries intact, but I still think that this squad is struggling in the way that the NALCS is looking right now. There's a lot of teams that have great synergy. They haven't changed their roster, and they're looking better and better every week, and Cloud9 needs to get up there.
We can see Bunny setting up, so he'll be at least starting for game 1, like you mentioned. Can't imagine we'll be too far away, but it's kind of funny. You mentioned the 2 stars, kind of the reliable members so far for this new Cloud9. Other AD carry and their mid laner. That's got to be rough on the other side for P1 with their sub mid laner Pyrian coming back into the lineup for this game, and then of course Slushy on AD carry. If you're ever going to have a game where you swap the AD carry just for funsies, I don't know if I really want to play against Sneaky.
I don't think so either, especially with Bunny Fufu. If Bunny Fufu is able to pull out like a Thresh or something, go back to that, and that's the whole don't get hooked, and you get hooked every single time. It's like, I'm off roll, guys, autofill.
Fortunately, wrong cue for that one here. And so we'll just get things sorted out. Yeah, you're funny. Mid lane, though, I think is where maybe Pyrian will struggle, because we saw him struggle against Froggen, who is not known to be the most aggressive laner. Definitely a strong laner, don't get me wrong. But Jensen, if there's one thing he always wants to do, it's take that solo queue mentality and just kill you and be as aggressive as possible.
Yeah, and that's what we were seeing about Jensen develop in the later part of the last split, where he was just racking up all of these kills, and he was a big contender for that most valuable player, right? Just kind of getting second place to Reignover in the polls because he was on fire for that last part of the split, and just absolutely amazing for Cloud9.
Well, let's talk about the other parts of Cloud9 then. Maybe the newer parts. I know they're not that new, but Impact Meteos. How have we found them so far early on? Because I think there were plenty of questions around Meteos as far as how he was playing Impact, a solid player, but could he fit onto the team? I feel like their early forays have been actually maybe a bit better than we would have expected early on.
Yeah, they're definitely better because we're always looking at that communication, and without High, it's like, okay, Meteos is stepping up, we're having Bunny step up, how's this team going to work as a unit? And Impact, well, I'm very curious to see how he adjusts to this meta, because he's always playing that Maokai. They're throwing him onto tanks over and over again. He's very comfortable there. Well, Relia's meta, right? You're having all these top lane carries that are meta. Is he going to go back to that? Because, I mean, the guy's got an SKT Jax skin.
Yeah? Guys are pretty good at League of Legends, as it turns out. Just to give you guys a quick update, we were just having a few issues with Bunny Fury setting up, but he should be all good now. Should be into champ select for the game number 1 in just a few minutes. While we are still here, though, let's talk about P1 a little bit more. Definitely lots of young and hungry players. You mentioned Impact. Zig was a promising top laner. Few Trundle games, maybe he's going to favor some of the carries coming back into that top side of the map. But again, everyone that P1 has to play against this particular match, with all the other things that are happening around them, there's some challenges in these solo lanes.
Yeah, Zig, he's kind of a fossil of the scene because he was always there, but he was kind of unnoticed. He was kind of underground. He's like playing Challenger, very talented, was on TLA for a long time with Dardoch and Matt, and I was very surprised that he didn't get pulled up to the main squad of Team Liquid because he seemed to fit the style of, he's very familiar with tanks, he's actually a versatile player, and he changed over from the AD carry role actually about a year ago. So kind of new to top lane, but still, he's completely comfortable there and he looks at home.
Well, we'll have to see what happens because P1's still searching for that win. Cloud9, I think expected early struggles as far as their season has gone. But I'll be curious to see sort of how it all works out. And when are the other subs coming, I guess? We see Bunny, again, sitting in that starting lineup. He will play here for game number 1. We've seen Smoothie come in. To me, I feel like Smoothie and Bunny right now are very similar players. I'm not getting like a super different feel as far as individual skill or ability goes. And I guess they're just trying to see what gels, or I guess maybe who's got the better shot calling. There's a lot of things outside of this that's hard to say for Cloud9. At least their top 4 players are definitely staying in their positions. But I see Bunny, I see Smoothie, I'm like, yeah, these are 2 great support players.
Yeah, they both were very good Thresh players back in Challenger as well. And I remember interviewing Meteos last week, and I asked him about it, and he's like, there really doesn't seem to be a big difference in the communication. They're both very vocal. They both talk about what they need. So both these support players, they're fighting for the same spot. The thing is are they necessarily fighting? Because you have to get them out of that mentality where it's healthy competition. They just need to make each other better.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what Cloud9's very big 10-man roster is trying to achieve. On the other side, again, P1, just again, add insult to injury to this poor team that's had a late substitution. They are still playing without their intended starting jungler, I believe. So Honori, not in this game. Sentinel definitely had a few good showings here and there, but I think Honori is the jungler the team wanted. They were also the last team to come together. Like, it's a rough split for P1, but they've definitely shown some great moments so far. I'd be curious to see what they show us here against C9, who I think individually especially will be a big challenge.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sentinel in the jungle because I think Sentinel is the person that I have my eye on because he's kind of that unknown. He's that enigma right now. He's that factor that, well, is this guy going to step up and be really good? Where, like, because we've seen Biofrost come into LCS, and it's like, well, this guy was playing in Challenger, and Adrian did the same thing, where they got brought up to LCS and they were fantastic. Does Sentinel have that same type of caliber inside of him?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the competition, we always say it, but it's pretty insane this summer. So definitely a test here for P1 as they were put together relatively late before the season started. So, I think just starting to chug along more than anything else. We'll see just how far they can get. All right, well, with that, we are about to get into Champ Select, so thank you very much for your patience. We'll be with you for game number 1 in just a few moments. Let's talk a little about 611's Irene, because I haven't casted with you yet, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts on the patch. Welcome. I'm a bit crazy. That's fine. You'll get used to it. 611, though, definitely a lot of changes.
Yeah, it's a great patch. I think a lot of the junglers that were overpowered have been tuned down a little bit, shaved off some power from Kindred, shaved off some power from Nidalee. So we're seeing a little bit more Elise, Rek'Sai being on the same tier, which I'm happy about. I mean, it's more kind of S tier, because now you brought the S tier down, which I guess kind of brings the A tier up, so they're all S tier. It's kind of a weird system.
Yeah.
It's a you know what? It's a curved scale. so when the good kids start doing bad, everybody's doing great.
Yeah,
And
definitely,
that's what it is.
definitely a shift of power, but it does feel like this will take a lot longer than just one LCS week to sort of
Yes.
adjust to. As your inter-champ select, as you can see there, P1. Don't forget, once again, the struggles of this team are real early on. They will lose a ban here for this first game, so only 2. Cloud9 will play with 3. P1 going to start on the blue side. We'll see what their first ban's going to be for this game.
Yeah, end up going through and not banning on the first round because you get
Yep.
to see the ban of Cloud9 and use that as your loss of ban for P1.
So, C9 going to get the first actual ban, I suppose, of the game. And it's Vladimir taken out straight away. Nobody wants to play against that guy.
Yep. Not enough Executioner's Callings. I mean, come on. But he is incredibly powerful. Even if you do have that, he's still healing for multiple hundreds every time he gets the key rotation up.
Yep, pretty quick bans here as well. Rise ban by C9, so another mage added to that pool. P1 use Ashe and Swain for their precious 2 bans here in this opener. And again, sort of the expected champions, I suppose, banned away so far. Maybe Ashe being a bit different there, but certainly a champion Sneaky knows well.
Exactly, and that's the thing is the initiation power of Ashe is something that we have seen prioritized incredibly heavily from a lot of teams overseas as well, and even on 6.10, just because we're seeing a lot of top lane carries, right? We're seeing Vladimir, we're seeing Swain, we're seeing these guys that aren't about that CC. If you bring the engage and CC from your AD carry role, and that's why Karma is also popular, you have a lot of engage and disengage from your bot lane, so you can bring damage elsewhere.
Yep, and that's last ban Kindred, which does leave Nidalee actually open to P1 Sentinel. Pretty happy to have that one in the jungle, but Meteos, he can play these champions, but definitely known for some other ones here. I'm sure he's happy to give that one away.
Oh yeah, I think he's happy to play the Rek'Sai right now, which is equal in tier with Nidalee after the nerfs, and people were pretty much picking up Rek'Sai again anyway, saying that, oh, this champion is still really good and has a lot of potential, a lot of map influence, and getting back into the swing of things with the Titanic Hydra build as well.
Classic Meteos. Always just has to have something special, doesn't he? As we'll see what C9 have in store for these first 2 picks. There is the Rek'Sai you mentioned, and there's Sivir actually for Sneaky.
And that's the other utility. I was talking about engage from Ashe. With Ashe off the table, the other engage AD carry is Sivir, and then that's basically it. Jhin is also seeing some popularity for the same reason that you can use the ultimate to kind of get that engage in the root. So if your AD carry has the CC, you bring damage elsewhere, and I'm looking forward to what C9 round this composition out with as it moves forward, because you could definitely pick up a Victor here. You could get a lot of great things.
Yeah,
from this.
utility carries definitely seem to be the name of the game in the bottom side of the map. So we'll see what C9 put together, because Sivir, not nearly the same champion she was before as far as we can just pick anything and it'll be good. You have to really think about your compositions here, as Karma gonna get snatched away almost there from the C9 side, going in onto P1 and Gate. And Pyrian just gonna take Victor. Might as well take a nice safe laner. Do not want to give too much away to Jensen.
Exactly. I think that's what Jensen would end up picking up anyway, and Victor is a completely fine blind pick at the moment. Karma is a takeaway because you don't want to have that double speed bot lane that gives your entire team engage potential, so they can run whatever they want and run it straight into your team if it's some type of bruiser, like an Alawi, right? An Alawi succeeds incredibly well if you have a Sivir and Karma both. Even if you have one, it's still a really good pick. So I'm interested because it's a lot of takeaways from C9 side and what they would have potentially wanted here, and I expect P1 to get themselves a Caitlyn later on.
Well, Caitlin's certainly open. It's been a pretty common pick into these short to medium range AD carries, but C9 do need to rustle up some picks here. 10 seconds left for picks 3 and 4. Jensen hovering Azir. See if he takes it away. Feels funny that we've always just gone back to Azir Victor, but for now we'll actually mix it up a touch. Bard and Trundle are actually the picks there for C9.
Really interesting here. Maokai was still on the table for Impact. Trundle is a champion that didn't take any nerfs from those top lane S tiers. And with the fact that QSS buff, so it kind of makes it so that picking a top lane tank right now for P1, kind of not recommended at the moment.
It's also a big champion for Ziggy. He's played a number of Trundle games already. So C9 kind of getting a bit of double duty on that particular pick. Slushie going to flash us at Draven.
Oh,
I
do
feel
it.
like his style.
Do it.
It's good into Sivir. Like, the pick
It's
makes sense.
great into Sivir. She can't spell shield your axes. There's nothing she can do about that. You're mostly auto attack based, and I expect him to go with something like one of those two.
You said it was an aggressive AD carry player, right?
I want the Draven.
He's a pretty aggressive mid laner.
I want to see that at Draven.
So I think this would all suit. Slushie's still taking his time though. Twitch is currently the hover. P1 also needs to make another pick here. There's Maokai, and there's Lucian actually into that Sivir.
Oh man, I wanted the excitement. But I mean, I guess he builds Yomu's Ghostblade anyway, and he's incredibly aggressive in lane, and he'll be able to push it on the Sivir. So Maokai comes in for the engage because they have a poke composition in a way with the Nidalee and also the Victor for wave clear. So P1, well-rounded, have a lot of options here. Good team fight, but the split push is not in their favor.
No, not this time around. See what C9 complete this composition with, though. As P1 have drafted, I'll say very safe here for game one, which makes sense, given the circumstances surrounding it. Looks like Jensen's pick is the one they need, though. We'll see what they select for him now that they have the entire composition of P1 revealed. They already knew the mid lane matchup, but Jensen, definitely a player that loves getting every single edge.
Could be Azir, which I would think it would be.
It's the hover from earlier, so
Yep.
I think I'll just, consider other options. Make the pick they were probably expected to make, but still a strong pick nonetheless. So our game one draft does not show too many surprises here. Curious to see how these teams execute on some pretty common and strong team comp.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of things kind of take people by surprise, right? We're seeing, people are playing Aurelia, no Aurelia ban or pick in this game. We're seeing people ending up playing things like the Alawi. Well, not in this game. So this is a rather vanilla draft, and it looks like 6.10.
Yes, it does, which is interesting, because I felt like in the C9 series earlier, it was still maybe playing a little bit behind the meta, or maybe that's just where they're comfortable. It's tough to say. I think P1, again, also doing the safe thing makes sense here. But if that's the case, we already talked about it.
Yep.
All about execution. P1, they're good.
They are.
I'm sure they're C9 good, and I'd be curious to see how this game one shakes out.
Exactly. And it's going to be Cloud9. Both teams kind of struggle with the cohesion right now. Cloud9 and P1 kind of on the same page there. But Cloud9 do have a little bit of an upper edge because they had been together in boot camp way before P1 had even been together.
Yep, good. Pretty good advantage. It was a good just argue and shake hands. Before we start off this series, though, make sure to predict the winner on Twitter using the hashtag P1win or the hashtag C9win. And what I will say, the things I love about this draft in particular, we said it's kind of vanilla, kind of tame, but it's only game one of the best of three. How this changes throughout the series will be very interesting because, as is very common in game one scenarios, let's just make it real simple to start things off.
Yep. Don't have to show anything. If you have some trump cards, now if you win game one with this, you don't have to bring it out for game two. If you lose, then you're on the back foot. So playing standard first game, definitely understandable here. It's a battle of the numbers, though.
We'll see how it works.
Is this golf and 1 is the good number? Or is 9 just the bigger number and it's every other sport?
I guess we'll find out. Today we will learn something. As P1 and C9 do move out for this opening game here. Looks like just a pretty standard fan so far. Level 1 always pretty interesting. We've seen kind of a different mix of things today. Some standard lanes, some lane swaps, but things have sort of normalized at level 1 pretty often.
Yeah, this is just a fan out. Blind lane swap is usually when people are picking things like Zyra, which we didn't see pick your band in this set, and people don't want to play against it. If anybody was going to lane swap in this, I would think it's Cloud9 for multiple reasons. One, you have more team cohesion with the time. I believe you would be able to handle lane swaps better. You're up against a substitute AD carry, so he may not know entirely how to bounce the wave correctly, which is actually an acquired skill. You have to do it a lot of times, go into custom games and just try it, because you might actually push it too early, and then your turret has to wait like 1 or 2 more waves, and that's a big problem in timing.
Well, it looks like actually lane swap might be initiated here by
All
P1.
right.
Going to move themselves up to that top half of the map. We'll have to see how this sort of shakes out, but
I'm a liar. My crystal ball is off. It looks like P1's going to go and try to be aggressive, invading the jungle.
yeah, late invade, spotted by a ward though. And they'll just walk up. So now C9 have full knowledge
They
of
checked the
lanes.
wrong one.
Nope, no red buff.
Nope.
It looks
Yep.
like Gates is going to go ahead and check the Krugs, but we will start with the lane swap here.
Yep. That's going to be C9, though, sneaking in camp. Ward spotting out the route and able to pick up one on the strong side of the map. So good for them. Whereas on the bot side, Sentinel ends up getting level 2 off of it, so he ended up getting his own camp.
Yep, did take the Krugs there, but Bunny Fufu, good damage. They do go for that invade.
Oh,
Gank here from
gave from
Gate.
behind.
I mean, not really a gank. Actually, Exhaust might turn it into one. Jensen going to have to flash out.
He can't reach him. Oh, Gate popped the mantra and had the Q, but the minions just got in front of Jensen, and he was like, I gotta get the angle, and they just kept following.
Well, free flash, so not
Oh.
too bad. Here's Bunny
Hey,
with the
next
same
support.
play. No. Diffused. Tyrion walks out of the way. But I like the attempt from both supports. We are going to see the Keystone Masteries. Nothing too surprising there.
I do really like the supports being very active early on, roaming towards that mid lane. And there's something that got kind of lost in the mix in Season 5, especially in the spring split a year ago, where everybody's lane swapping. North America was lane swapping more than any other of the major 5 regions. And it's like, okay, well, why is nobody just going mid and upsetting that? Your support is kind of trivial damage at some points, and you're still pushing the wave. He has a good minute and a half to go roam and do something. And people start picking it up again after we saw MSI this year and near the end of the spring split this time.
Yep, people just start to play their options, depending on sort of how the metagame is shifting around. Though, still getting these standard 3v0 pushes. Sentinel actually flying through the jungle, taking his strong side red camp, but that's away from Meteos' side of the jungle. Nothing too surprising though, but Italy definitely loves to power farm it up. Meteos actually ahead currently in CS, but both these junglers will be more than happy that they don't have to do anything but farm for the first 5 minutes or so of the game.
Sometimes you're happy. Sometimes you're just like, I want to gank. If you're Dardoch, you're just like, lane swaps, come on. But yeah, being able to get your jungle and have a pretty good freeze here. Impact will have it pretty much at the point where you want it. Standard freeze, whereas topside,
Yeah,
not quite.
Zeke left a few
Not
caster
quite.
creeps in that wave, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
struggle a bit, but looks like Sneaky and Bunny Fufu are going to move up there and deal with that. Zeke will pick up what CS he can for now. Impact doing the same, but we are going to have, again, the most standard variation played today.
Yep. Ward spotting out the 80 carries and supports, walking to the lane. So top laners know when to back off. I'm actually quite curious because we see that ward all the time where it's right there. You're waiting for the 80 carry support to walk by it. You should path through the jungle at some point. 80 carry support should path through the jungle. See what happens.
Pressure from Sentinel. They know Jensen doesn't have a flash. He actually burnt TP as well.
Yeah.
Get a second Doran's. Also has blue buff by the looks of things. So nice early donation from Meteos.
Yep, Rek'Sai able to hand that off. Great for a lot of mid laners. You can be a little bit mono-starved if you continue to chunk out with the Azir. You can get that cooldown reduction as well. So Meteos now just going back to, oh, I have to go clear out this side of the jungle or else I fall behind in experience. Do the lane swap.
And if Meteos does know one thing, it's how to power farm a jungle. Going to take his wolf camp away from the P1 side. And we'll see what Sinai can get done as far as pushes go. Looks like both trios are starting their push at pretty much a similar time, so I can't imagine these speeds will be vastly different.
Yep. If P1 get this in at a good pace, they could pick up Infernal Drake, which everybody seems to love.
And that's the nice thing. We talked about lane swaps and how the objectives sort of fall by the wayside because the towers are more important, but the new Drake's definitely an objective that people want. Zentorm's actually already, no, he was already starting it, but I think he's backed off. He's actually wrapping around, maybe looks for the push through, going to take the Grump instead. I imagine P1 will back off for this Dragon, so all things considered, splitting the map may just be advantageous for Phoenix here.
Yeah, I think that the question is, will C9, if it's a Dragon or if it's Drake going over to P1, will they get Rift Herald for impact and get him that gigantic foot push advantage? Because then he wins that lane just flat out, not because of the matchup, which is already in his favor. Well, he also gets the Rift Herald buff. And no, P1 just going to back off. No Infernal Drake. I'm very surprised by that because if you look at the top side of the map, turret is not dead yet.
Yep.
They're still working on it.
In fact, Impact is kind of proxying a wave almost. C9 going to piece, going to make sure they give Impact the biggest lead possible. Impact again, going to try and bounce this wave back as far as he possibly can.
The only reason you would do this as P1 is if you could save the turret, shove Impact off of it, and then he ends up with his team not having that entire turret gold. So I feel like this is a missed opportunity to get that Infernal Drake, which is just highly desired.
Yep, right now the big major objective is actually staying up on the map. And we'll swap back by the looks of things, and I think get ourselves into some pretty long standard lanes. Kyrian, though, aggressed on by Jensen on the Azir, is actually pretty even in CS, but forcing him out there is nice. Victor, though, going to go back. Those double Dorans already. In fact, Kyrian's going to stay for an extra wave, which is a bit greedy. Meteos here maybe potentially able to line up again, because Smite battle. Sentinel and Meteos going to face off. Sentinel just fighting him right now. Meteos smites it away. Sentinel going to lose that initial jungle challenge.
Gets the farm, walks away by Sightstone super early on. Doesn't even go for jungle upgrade or anything like that. He's just going for vision control. Standard in lane swaps for Rek'Sai because you only get the Stalker's Blade if you know you're going to get those ganks off early. So just trying to control jungle.
Doing a good job of it so far. Certainly a champion that's pretty handy to have in a lane swap. As Bunny Fufu actually, again, continuing our trend from the last series we saw with a bunch of lane swaps. Everyone's very active on the map right now, so Bunny Fufu actually playing the roaming support, I guess. Pretty appropriate here for this game, and that's a nice care package for Jensen in his lane.
Giving out a heal. Also, Bard as a roaming support it's fantastic. You get some experience off the chimes, actually designed to leave lane as much as possible. Remember in the development, it was all about how do we get him to leave lane, but not have him be so lane dominant. But it's like, but if he's not lane dominant, then he never gets to leave lane, because then his AD carry is just always pushed in.
Well, we solved it. Lane swap every game.
Eventually worked it out. Here comes Gate, though, looking towards mid lane. He has exhaust backup. Jensen has all sums. Hyperion's super low.
Yeah, Jensen wants to play aggressive here, but even if Gate comes, I don't know if he can actually make a difference. Meteos also just to the right, so in the area, as Slushie pushing up in the top side, can give Impact a nice juicy wave, and here's Bunny Fufu once again, making sure he leaves Caretaker Shrines everywhere he goes. He's making sure everyone's okay. Looks like Impact's just fine for now as P1 collapse a few tunnels and kind of take control of this top side of the map. Set red buff will be their objective, but Meteos has one to take on the south side as well. So you're going to push him out for now.
Now Zig, big difference here is Cloud9 Impact top lane has this gigantic wave. This wave is also pushing towards Cloud9, so both Sneaky and Impact are going to be picking up farm, whereas Zig and Slushie, they have to find something to do during this time and make it so that during this time, you have to do something that needs to be answered by Cloud9 to a minute and 30 after that. So if it's bouncing the waves back or having action in the mid lane, you do have to go after something.
You know what they could do, Zarin? Take a penalty drink.
They could take, yeah, exactly. They could do a drink.
Not this time around at least, as Meteos and Bunny Fufu going to move their way in. Another good smite from Meteos. That's his second Raptor camp in a row. He has stolen out from under Sentinel. In general, though, this formation looks just fine for both teams. Long side lanes to play with, wave clear mid laners. It's no real surprise we started this one off with a lane swap.
Yeah, and you can see Cloud9 are just executing it a little bit better, and now you're seeing these advantages manifested. Bunny Fufu 2 levels up over Gate. Impact was 2 levels up over Zig. Now he's 1.5 levels up over Zig. It's a big problem. And Meteos was farming the jungle harder than Sentinel, actually taking some of his. Meteos is half a level up. So C9 have these power spikes and experience.
Okay, Slushie going in, but Meteos going to turn it around. The binding almost good. Gate was close to, I think, sending his team to certain death, but Sentinel's here as well. C9 going to back out from their jungle.
And if that Spirit hit Bunny Fufu, would have seen a hard commit there from Sentinel. But no, Jensen's going to roam down from the top side and just pushing in the top. So yeah, a lot of pressure here from P1.
Look at how much damage Zig's taken. That's just some trades 1v1 there. Impact the level up with the Tiamat. Able to pressure nicely. Also 20 CS ahead at this point.
There is a big wave there, and this is where if there was somebody to dive that top laner, it's just he's out of the game at that point. But hopefully Zig picks up this CS for himself, or else he falls even further behind it. Impact is threatening, but it's a Trundle. You can't really threaten that hard.
Yeah, just a bluff. We'll at least try and get Zig off a couple, which I think he does successfully. Slushie looking. I think does tag someone with the W, but other than that, Jensen back with blue buff. That cannot be the same one.
No. I was like, whoa. That's the 7-minute spawn one. Or typically 7 minutes, but because he took it a little bit later.
Well, still happy as they're farming up a Storm. 10 CS up of Pyrian as we're almost 11 minutes into this game, and it's been a rather quiet game. But you mentioned earlier, C9 are just getting a little bit ahead in different spots, and they're almost 1,000 gold up as a result. So it sounds kind of silly, but these things clearly add up to a tangible gold total. And while we are going to have a relatively quiet push through towards that 15-20 minute mark, C9 should, in theory, be ahead once that moment hits, at least by a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually going to get a little bit bigger too, because the P1 lane, top lane is going to slowly push out once again towards Impact. So Impact will end up having this gigantic bank of minions that are going to be eventually pay off for him a minute and a half later. And then this bot wave is still being frozen by Sneaky. Freeze hasn't been broken, and there we go. Finally, pushing back towards him. Cannon, that's the good old cannon minion. So the great thing about freezing minion waves is eventually it'll have to go back, and it's usually because of the cannon minion. Because the lane is so long that your cannon minion, if you are pushed onto like your tier 2, your cannon minion will show up way sooner than theirs, and theirs is like 30 seconds away. So eventually it breaks it, and you'll see, I believe the Sivir is now meeting that other cannon minion wave.
Yep, and
there it is.
And now it's actually reversing. So a big wave stacked up here. Sneaky actually just going to keep this pretty slowly pushing down, but he's really not been threatened at all. Like, deep freezes tend not to happen in lane swaps anymore because teams got good at punishing it. So Jensen going to get ulted here. Pyrian there with a good ulti, but Jensen's going to try and turn it around. Meteos going to move in as well, but Pyrian flashes out. Flashball from Meteos will give him first blood. And the TP's cancelled. Impact not needed.
Yeah, a little interesting there. I thought the Emperor's Divide was going to push him even further, but no, he kind of slips by the side. And then that's Meteos having to burn the flash to keep up with Furion because he had to use his own.
Well, good play rather from C9. They're actually going to get damage onto this turret as well. P1 just a little slow to all these rotations around the big lane swap, and this tower going down would actually be a big loss.
Yeah.
Impact's going to join in. They will take it. P1 finally punished. A little thing turned into a very big thing.
Exactly. In P1, they seem reactionary right now, and they're still not reacting fast enough. If you're being aggressive and you're taking things like the Infernal Drake off the lane swap, and you realize that the enemy team is 20 seconds behind you and killing that turret, you take that Infernal Drake 100% of the time, because what are you going to do instead? This is a mid push where Jensen just had priority. Jensen pushes in, and they are able to capitalize on it. And we were talking about Jensen at the start as a big damage dealer. Well, he's starting to turn online already. And you can see here, Furion thinks he's going to get the better of this because he actually goes on to Jensen, throws out the ultimate. It's knocked up instead of slid into the wall because it probably would have pinched him right against that wall. And then the follow-up with the TP used by Impact.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, just to make sure. Better safe than sorry.
Doesn't really cost him too much. He's actually having a real fun time right now. Zig's caught up in CS. Cena did get that Infernal Drake we saw as well, so see if maybe P1 get an objective of their own. They're going to start a proactive play here onto that Rift Herald. This will be a great buff for Impact, so taking it away from the Trundle, advantageous certainly for P1.
Yeah, they're going to need all the advantages they can get now because losing your mid lane turret tier 1 is big. Now all the outers are down for P1, and they've just opened up the map. Every time I talk to a professional player about that mid lane turret, they hold it so this is just like a prized possession. They're like, I cannot lose this turret because it's so central to the map that they lose control of their blue and red buff, and whatever the enemy wants to go invade, it's your safe spot. It's really your base, and if you lose that, you have no home base to tag and be like, I'm safe.
Yeah, especially these two champions with the Zero and Victor sort of pride themselves on keeping that turret alive for a long time.
And that's the thing is, when you look at turrets like the top or the bottom tier 1, when it goes down, okay, there are a couple more routes into that lane for a gank and they can't overextend. In mid, there's twice as many as if you had opened it up on one of the side lanes. So junglers love it because there's so many ways in after that point.
And again, C9 just in full control at this stage. 15 minutes in, Jensen are taking his own blue buff.
Every blue buff to Jensen so far.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
Meteos on the rec side, able to be anywhere. And with a map this open, it sort of favors the overall squad for C9. Impact getting stronger, can just stay in that top side and continually split push. He still has a massive CS lead on Zig, although Zig again is catching up as the wave crashes towards him.
Yeah, when I look at the actual gold values, Zig is 1,000 down on Impact at the moment. He has gold coming in, but that's where a large part of this advantage is coming from. The jungle, you can see the CS as well. Just every lane right now, every single role except for support.
And another great rotation from C9. Now going to pressure this tier 2 turret. Zig had a big wave built towards it. It's not really safe to try and defend. P1, are they here in time?
No, because Luci's just going to farm the bottom wave. Pyrion's going to farm the mid wave. C9 has 5 members, get to do whatever they want now.
Yeah, wave not stacked up enough though. They're going to keep bouncing through, see if they can't catch someone taking a shortcut through the jungle.
Yep. And Azir put down his turret in the mid lane so that this is a place that you can't pass by, and this is his own mid-tier 1, which allows him to have complete jungle control here. And Cloud9 are just playing this really safe, and it's just really kind of by the book.
Oh, Zig, no! Here we go again, the pillar in. Bunny Pooper going to land up the stun, but he leads a little too much. Meteos, though, able to crush it down, and that twisted advance was not advised.
You are just not answering any of this if you're P1. They're going back and forth, and they're kind of getting run around the map here. Furion didn't need help mid. Zig went a little bit too far forward top, but they would have dove him anyway.
Lucy is pushing on the bottom side, so we'll see if maybe they can get something back here. Teleport there for Impact if he really wants to answer it right away.
I think you might.
Not yet. Lucy actually not even committing for the turret, so damage will be done, but it won't go down.
Yeah, because he's not on that turret, for the fear of that happening, he knows there's Rek'Sai tunnels behind him, and you can teleport to those Rek'Sai tunnels, so you blatantly see those on your map because they were discovered earlier. And you don't want that impact to come from behind. 2 levels up on Zig, one now after he just leveled up.
And again, it's just that safe play here from P1. Reactive was a word used earlier. That's a great word for what's happening. And C9, yes, they're playing quite deliberate, but they're picking up the pace. They're making the proactive plays. They're seeing the openings. And again, we talked about standard drafting. The play is also echoing that here early on. And it's not even individual skill that C9 need right now. It's just strong map play and really solid teamwork. That's got them almost 4,000 gold ahead in a lane swap. That's a lot at 17.5 minutes.
Yeah, and this is what we're seeing with teams even like Immortals, where we look at their down and kills every single game against Energy, and they're just like, oh yeah, by the way, we're up because we have better macro movements. So if you looked at the scoreboard, you would think, well, they're getting crushed, but no. So this is what you have to do as a top team, is you have to just play the map, and then the game will be in your favor.
Jensen went for the play, but Gate, the only one to get knocked out by Tempered Fate. Follow-up stun is good, and Jensen's going to take him out. The ulti out from Victor as Zig caught to the left-hand side. Might be the next kill target for C9. P1 still around. Victor ulti kind of zoning them away. C9 again, just with a clean pickoff.
Yep, clean pickoff there, had all the avenues in, and they actually flanked from multiple sides there. Didn't even have to really use the Sivir ultimate either to start that fight off.
Still got it. I think Jensen was the initial target from P1, burnt his sums and ulti, but got out of the way in relatively short order. Ocean Drake up in 55 seconds as P1 starting to get chased out of their own jungle now. We talked about this a bit when we first saw P1 play, where before Slushie came in for their second game, where it just felt like they didn't have anyone who was willing to make a proactive play.
Yeah.
From mid lane on Assassin, Slushie was that player. But he's an AD carry now, and he just doesn't have the same like power or agency to really get stuff done.
It seems like leadership is something that P1 need. They need somebody to have a game plan of what they're going to do. Gets multiple flashes there, which then prompts the ultimate to come down from Bunny Fufu because there's no flash on Gate. And then the pickup afterwards, and just the clean disengage, because C9 could have gotten greedy there. Sneaky had ultimate, you had superior combat stats. They could have actually just run straight at P1 and tried to clean up that fight, but they played really reserved.
Yep, and that's a good word for this game in general from C9. Just sort of playing it by the book, but certainly executing it every turn so far. Nicky, though, going to mow down that mending wave, and the power is starting to come now. Everyone on C9. Ravenous Hydra finished for Impact. Jensen with the Rylai's almost completed, plus that Nashor's Tooth. And the Essence Reaver with the Cold finished and ticked away. Sneaker's item coming up soon. Add an Ocean Drake to the tally, and everything's coming up C9 right now. T1 still struggling to find a way in, and C9 look to maybe smother them out of this game.
C9 just taking control of all the objectives here.
Sneaky though, still pushing down. Gonna get what he can here on the Sivir. Again, no one really contesting this farm, so he's not particularly afraid at this point. Jensen actually busy farming up the jungle because he's a mid laner. They like to make sure they get as much farm as possible.
It's true. It's true. He plays a little far forward, but regardless, Cloud9, their wave manipulation is just flat out better than P1's.
And the amount of jungle control this team has had almost all game long, P1 just can't really step out of their lower third of the map into their own buffs near the red and blue. And C9 are actually lining up for another turret here.
Yeah, and Impact has TP over Zig, who does not have it, and he just gets to push top lane in all the way, deny farm, and possibly make a TP play on the other side of the map.
Let me tell you about Ravenous Hydra Trundle. This is not a slow
Tell me,
push.
K-Street.
This is not a slow push, Cyrene. In fact, he's going to be challenged by Zig. He actually backs off, I assume, to cover with a teleport. But if he keeps going, those towers will not live. There's Meteor straight back into the red buff. C9 continuing to play up towards this red half of the map. See if they can't catch someone from P1.
Clear out the jungle, make sure you have complete agency over it. And Cloud9, if they can control it, have Sneaky shove out that bottom wave, then they get this tier 2 turret, because you can see that line of wards. It's the Orion's belt in the jungle.
Good way to put it. Great coverage from C9. Again, just playing everything like they need to. Still only 4,500 gold up, so haven't grown a huge lead in the last few minutes, but do not be fooled. They are slowly but surely getting ahead, and at some point, it just all breaks for P1. Because they're either, okay, we're now too far behind, we have to make a play, or we're too far behind, we don't make a play and we lose.
It's a slow bleed.
Not a good try.
It's the slow bleed if you don't do anything.
And look, to P1's credit, they get to choose, is it going to be the slow bleed or the fast bleed? I think it's one way or the other, they have to make a proactive play. Maybe Baron is where they look to. They are powering up. Well, they've got some items coming through, but it's just tough.
If you toggled vision right now, there's one ward that was just placed, is the blue trinket right there on the Baron, and Cloud9 have the bottom side of the map completely lit up, Constellation down there, but nothing on the top side, and you could see exactly where they're focused with all of their pink wards and all of their vision control. Whereas P1 on the other side, exact opposite. They are all about that Baron right now. But it's probably not even to do it. It's probably just to make sure Cloud9 don't do it.
Yeah, Jensen set up another turret there, so that's a great point for C9 to pivot around. Now, though, realizing they had no vision after that blue trinket, will move their way in and around the Baron area. Impact's actually transferred down to that bottom side to apply pressure there, mainly because that's where the ward coverage is. And C9, an Ocean Drake, an Infernal Drake, everything's just going exactly the way they want it to right now.
Yeah, if you're Cloud9, you pretty much just continue doing what you're doing at this point. You've already tested them and said, okay, well, we know how to manipulate
And
waves
look,
better.
this,
They're losing.
this is what
Oh.
their comp wants to do as well, right? We talked about standard drafts P1. Just strong champions in every role. Pretty good team fight. That's sort of the Karma. That's the Karma Maokai special usually. Impact though on the Trundle, definitely much more about the split pushing. Does slap Zig there, although it's far too many turret hits for that particular trade. Does still have his ultimate though, so things will likely be okay. And seeing I know, like, sure, if they get into a team fight, we can probably force one, but they just don't need to. They have the Trundle. They can just play through it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is when you're playing the map, the risk ultimately becomes lower. You're talking about like a 20% risk. If you actually take a team fight, even if it's higher, or even slightly higher, like 5%, people are just like, okay, well, you're just going to go with the safe option, right? That's why we didn't see the Sivir ultimate pop from Sneaky, because there's the possibility that it gets turned around on you or somebody misplays.
Depends on the team.
Yeah,
Some teams like to take only coin flips.
That's true, because you get more, higher risk, higher reward.
But C9 at least right now, again, talk about still figuring out their identity as a team, at least in this game. They'll play it very safe. But things could change. And you know that if there is a proactive play to be made, Bunny's actually had some good lineups. He's actually pretty much holding Meteos' hand this whole game long. Because anytime P1 wants to do anything, they've got the backup of Rek'Sai and Bar just ready to rescue them or turn it around and start a play.
And starting a play is something that I actually want to see from Cloud9, because sure, you can play the macro game, and that's fantastic, and you're slowly going to bleed them out, but we're looking at teams like Immortals that are constantly fighting. TSM, 4-man dives mid very early on in the game, and they try to choke you out immediately after that by having constant pressure, and you wouldn't be able to get the type of wards down that P1 are getting down and then having cleared. So Cloud9, if they want to contend with the big boys now of the LCS, because they're falling out of that category, they need to make very proactive plays. They need to be slaughtering their opponents, especially something as a team like P1 that people are perceiving near the bottom of the standings at the moment.
Yeah, at least early on. And again, it only gets rougher here, having to make a late substitution. C9, though, continuing their jungle control rate. Meteos feels like he's trying to set some sort of record here for amount of buff stolen. Oh, Jensen, oh, he missed it. That would have been like, what, 6th consecutive blue buff?
Every blue buff. We could probably get a percentage of blue buffs taken by Cloud9.
There's a lot.
It'd be very high. There's a jungle control stat somewhere in the world.
Well, to check it out later, perhaps. The C9 continue to play this game. Now P1 grouping up a bit. Ooh, good tag on a bunny. Firelight is there, so they give some catch potential now with the Victor. Slushie also with 2 items, so it feels like P1 maybe poised for a fight here. They're not too far behind.
Yeah. They could play for a fight. We do have the double item power spikes coming through for Lucian, for Slushie, and for Pyrian. And this is rather interesting because we used to see Victors get 2 upgrades on their Hex Core and then leave it there for a very long time. They didn't really care about the gravity field. We are seeing people, we'll talk about that in a second, we're seeing people get the red one, the final one, very early on because the buffs that happen to Chaos Storm, when you get the red one, it increases the movement speed of Chaos Storm by 20%. So we're seeing people even get that first item, then Rylai's. So when it's faster and you're slowing your opponents, and it has that gigantic tick damage, granted it ticks, every so often, keeping them in it is important, and that's what people are going for, is just using that ultimate as that gigantic tool.
Pretty gross as Sentinel can't even catch a break. Ocean Drake goes over to C9. But Spear's not there to steal the red buff away. Impact will take that for himself. I don't think he did not get going to the void. So Zig actually still has that, but that's like kind of just keeping the lane afloat for Zig, I think.
It's a good point. Otherwise, would have been shipped down here for him.
2 levels behind still. How does this even happen?
It's just the wave manipulation and the fact that they have control of this jungle. Impact was taking wolf camps every time he shoved out top, and then Zig was actually having Sentinel walk up and take like half the farm with him when he's clearing the wave. He's like, help me push this wave. Took everything and the experience. So you see Impact 50 CS up at the moment.
Yeah.
It's getting disgusting here because that's also happening in the mid lane.
And even Sneaky's up a bit, but yeah, the fact that the 2 big solo laners here in Impact and Jensen are this far ahead in fun. Even Meteos a little far ahead as Cloud9 making a play. Meteos goes in. Sentinel is going to flash out. That was some value there as Zent does get knocked by the Tempered Fate. Impact also here. Zenton going to be the target. They'll move out onto him. They've got plenty of DPS. And Impact will collect that kill. Oh, whoa, Slushie! Too aggressive. A double there for Trundle.
Yep, Slushie a little too far forward. Still has his flash, but Jensen able to catch him out, and that's going to be Baron here for Cloud9. Already have it warded up with their pink that never got cleared. Should be rather simple for them to take with no jungler on the field.
2 sideways pushing as well. You mentioned that wave manipulation. C9 are playing a almost perfect game.
Yep.
And if you consider the lane swap turrets to be like an even trade on both sides,
Rift Herald's like the only
that
thing.
team's opted into. Yeah, it's just the Rift Herald that P1 have managed to take away from Cloud9. Now Baron on, leads absolutely almost insurmountable. So watch this again.
Flash from Gate, and then flash from Zentinel.
All right, cool, no flashes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're waiting for. They're waiting for those flashes to come down. Shifts out because he has to. And Slushy, oh, he's going to get the trundle with nobody following him. Definitely a lack of communication there between himself and Pyrian.
Real aggressive, as we expect from Slushy, but again, from the AD carry position, it's just not quite the plays he was making on some of his other picks. And Cloud9 are so far ahead in this game. 8,000 gold up at 28 minutes. We talked about the slow bleed. This is kind of not that slow anymore. C9 is looking to see this out. I think he's not even hitting the turret. He's letting the cannon creep do all the work.
Yeah, range of Sivir. I mean, that's the risk, right? C9 are very risk-averse right now.
Okay!
And they're, oh.
Just taken out. Now Pyrian's going to go down as well almost. Meteor's going to flash in. Try and go for the tower dive here. Meteor does take him out. Now Impact's teleported in. And they're going to go for a tower dive. Funny Fufu missing that ulti, but Zig now has to flash out of the way. Santa will flash forward to get themselves some much needed kills. Slushy eats a Price Seeker and C9 open up the game.
Yeah, 28 minutes in, C9 finally pulled the trigger and they're able to capitalize. They get that mid-tier 2. Baron buff, no problem. This turret is just going to get shredded, and so is this inhibitor. And they may even go for more. 20 seconds, but they have a wave on the top side.
Just all too easy, it looks like, for Cloud9. Squad moves out through the magical journey. I'll try and take out at least another inhibitor turret. I think they'll get this one. Not sure they'll break the inhibitor as well. Impact going to take some tower shots and move forward, threatening anyone from Phoenix One that dares to cross them, and they do not dare. This inhibitor melts.
No problem there for Cloud9. Not even so much as a threat on them at all after they got that Baron. Bottom wave is shoving towards them as well, so they have a gigantic wave to pick up in the only lane that has turrets left. Pretty much seems like a done deal there for Cloud9 to figure out what they need to do next. Gate walks up and, oh man. You know Sand Soldier's probably hurt, because not only are you getting stabbed, there's also sand in your wound as well. Probably a little bit salty. I would be too, because that was so much damage there. On the Gate, immediately blown up, and you can see just the fact that they played so slow, got an incremental advantage that built up to this. Well, you finally fight with this gigantic advantage and you blow the game wide open.
And that's what
Cloud9 did.
And that's what I was going to mention. This whole game, you tend not to win just by only playing the map. They hit the point where it's like, okay, we built a lead, we do have to make a play.
Yeah.
And then depending on how far you've gotten ahead, the game either ends or you get in a winning position to end the game after that.
Exactly.
Cloud9, given the pace they're playing it, I thought we were going to wait a little longer, but they picked their moment. They're about 6k up. They just rush forward, go to 12,000 gold up now, and P1 just have not no chance, but very close to.
Yeah.
Given how much damage C9 have already done to their base.
Yeah, very little chance at this point. They're going to have super minions just pouring in, and they're going to have to answer eventually, but even the damage from C9. When you play that slow as Cloud9, you are just waiting to get yourself in the perfect position to have a team fight, and you're saying every item we get gives us more percentage chance of winning that team fight later, and they're basically at 99% right now. P1 have to dig deep.
Yeah, they have to try and fight here, but Zig actually getting melted on the front line, gets taken out by Sneaky as Impact just face tanking everyone. Pyrian now going to get ulted up by Bud. Jensen takes out one on the backhand as Slushy's going to fall down. This last inhib will fall, and C9 will do it tutorial style. Going to probably push in and try and end the game.
Tutorial style, I like it.
Haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
But it's an oldie and a goodie. C9 going to take his Nexus turrets out. Death time is too long here, and P1, with nary a scratch left on C9, will drop game number 1.
Yep. Pretty much perfect game there for Cloud9, aside from the Rift Herald, which you could still kind of count as a lane swap objective. Cloud9, clean and deliberate.
Very clean and very deliberate, most certainly, but a solid game nonetheless. It's sort of interesting. You expect in this spot, you're coming in as Cloud9, you may be favored in the matchup just on early impressions. You know that it's a little rough for P1 right now. You think to yourself, okay, like we kind of expect to win. We don't want to like do anything too silly. Some teams will come out swinging and just go absolutely crazy in style on you. Not C9, not at least in this game.
No.
They'll play it very slow, very safe, and say, you know what? If we're expected to win, let's take our game.
Yeah.
But still 1 or 2 games left to play.
It's true.
And P1, they have to think after game 1, we drafted standard, we played safe. That's not going to work.
Nope, not at all. They're going to have to dig deep for that. They're going to maybe change up their strategy. I hope don't be so reactionary. I mean, you can sit there as P1 and say, we literally have nothing to lose. The expectations are usually against them that, they're not going to be able to pull out a victory. So if they try things and they go crazy and they get these advantages, then people are just like, oh my God, that's really good. And maybe they learn something as well. You need to take risks because you're at a disadvantage not only just in synergy, but also a little bit in individual skill here. We're seeing Cloud9 just play so well that they're able to play that deliberate game and then close it out.
Well, certainly was a good game there. For a closer look at that methodical win by Cloud9, let's send it over to Dash, Mark, and Crumbs on the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This was honestly just a stomp by Cloud9 here, very clearly outclassing FLICKR in the first game of their series. I see, Crumbs, that you took some very serious notes here on this one. Unfortunately,
Just a smiley
no,
face.
I mean, the games like these are tough to analyze because it does seem so lopsided. But I do want to try and get down to like the brass tacks, the nitty gritty of this all, and really figure out where in FLICKR's game they're lacking the most. Like, what are those holes that they need to plug first on their sinking ship before they can get better?
Well, the first thing we got to touch on is obviously they have a different AD carry and somebody that was playing mid lane for them previously. So you'd expect a lack of synergy in that regard, which C9 playing their hand very well, understanding that AD carries a critical role in the lane swap for wave management. So, you know, the top lane and the AD carry have to have a lot of synergy in maneuvering these waves, and they messed up. And immediately C9 capitalized on that, and they are off to a great start.
Yeah, I think really what it comes down to is they messed up in the 2v1. They did it last week as well. Here, again, they end up with 2 waves pushing to C9 after they take the second turret. And that's how you see 15 CS leads on both the top and the bot lane. Where normally you see it kind of like one-on-one, one's ahead, one's behind as the waves kind of go back and forth. But C9 just got a ton of farm on both of them. And then from there, when they finally do push the waves back, they played extremely well. They got a kill on the Maokai by having their whole team rotate over. When their waves were coming in and the Trundle wanted to pick up a wave, his team would cover him. It wasn't just Impact going there alone. So C9 really played the map way better than P1, and that's really where these advantages came from.
Absolutely cleaner. Last week, Mark, on the desk, we were kind of criticizing C9 for those lulls in the mid game, their inability to create action or to really create advantages for themselves through that mid game. Here, though, what's your assessment on the way that they played the mid game through here?
So it's obviously significant improvement to how they played last week, but I'd have to give credit a lot to Reaper. I've met him personally and know that he's extremely talented at coaching and knowing how to dictate the game. So I feel like he would have a lot of impact and influence on how Cloud9 is going to play the game out, and I'm expecting them to improve constantly every single week. And in my books, these are one of the teams to look out for a strong playoff contender.
Yeah, I definitely think they are. They have the individual talent in terms of all their carries, all their roles. The biggest question mark you obviously have is in the support position, but even then, those guys are mostly known for being mechanically strong players, and the question mark's coming from decision making or something. And with Reaper at the helm of this ship, you think it's going to, turn around very quickly if the
they're already sailing
macro.
towards
Yeah, if the problem is macro, you're in a good position with Reaper as your coach.
Right, they course corrected already a little bit. We've also heard from the players themselves that they obviously have an immense amount of respect for him, but that he is, in a sense, a no-nonsense coach. He does know a lot about the game, and he thinks very intelligently about it. Moving on to our player of the game, one of those soul winners, one of those individual talents who does kind of set them up to be a playoff contender. That's going to go to Jensen here in the mid lane on that Azir.
He's just like such a staple for their play. He's always safe in the mid lane, always making the right play. He puts out huge damage in team fights. If you want him to be aggressive in the laning phase, because that's what your strategy calls for, he can go do that. So just whatever you need, Jensen will do it.
I really like that flexibility that he brings with also his solo queue days way back with a lot of assassin play. He's still able to bring that into the game, and it puts a lot of burden into the mid laners that play against him, because if you want to go with a safer pick, then chances are you're going to give them a counter pick, and he's very proficient at all these champions.
Yeah, well, this just in, a little bit of news. C9 opting into making a substitution here for Game 2, so Smoothie's going to come in. Bunny Fufu is out. Now, we've seen the both of them get playing time. It feels like here the situation is that Bunny got a solid game in. Now let's put Smoothie in a situation where they can kind of recreate, as you mentioned, these mid-game situations. Let's get both of our support players some practice at those kind of advantages in closing games out.
It's a wise choice. In the beginning they mentioned that they don't just want to stick to one. They want to make sure that they build both of these guys up. And, you got a game that looks pretty easy to beat P1, so why not just give the other support practice? And even if it was a bit of a tougher competition, I'd expect them to do the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last week they would lose the first game and then swap their player, and then they said, "Oh yeah, we'll just swap every time we lose." And now here they go in a win. They're like, "Yeah, we'll swap now too."
Right.
So, but I think it does make sense, like Crumb said. Just get the player experience. You think this is a pretty easy series from here on. Even if you do lose game 2, you have game 3 to say, put Bunny back in if Smoothie is the one underperforming in game 2.
C9 confident with their first win. Smoothie coming in for game 2. We're going to step away while the teams prep for game 2 of Cloud9 versus Phoenix 1. Stick around. The North American LCS returns in just a bit.
Phoenix 1 and Cloud9. These are two teams that have struggled a bit out of the gate, both facing tough tests.
We have to win this.
Oh, that
If
jungle
we
smash,
lose,
baby.
then we go back to cold showers.
Then Meteor's going to move in as well, but Period flashes out. Flash bolt from Meteors will give him first blood. Vex teleported in, and they're going to go for a tower dive. Funny Fufu missing that ulti, but Zig now has to flash out of the way. Santa will flash forward to get themselves some much-needed kills. Yeah, they have to try and fight here, but Zig actually getting melted on the front line, gets taken out by Sneaky as Impact just face tanking everyone.
Cloud9, clean and deliberate.